All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, it's exciting to be back.
This is going to be a fun one.
It is.
We love to tackle these sort of like niche Power Query functions. We did one on Date from a little while back.
Right.
I think that one went over really well.
Very useful function.
Yeah. And, we keep hearing from y'all about dates.
People love to hate dates.
They're just so hard to work with. So
that's great.
We're gonna do a deep dive on another date function today.
Sounds good.
We're gonna talk about the Date.AddMonths function.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And I think, on the surface it sounds like, okay, well, you're just adding months. What's the big deal?
Sure.
But when you think about a lot of times you're doing data analysis and you're trying to compare month over month, year over year.
Absolutely.
Sales data, website, traffic data, whatever it is.
Right.
Being able to shift the date by a certain number of months is super powerful.
Right. So if you want to compare January this year to January of last year,
right,
you need to be able to shift all of your dates back 12 months to make an apples to apples comparison.
Exactly.
And so this function makes it really easy to do that.
So rather than manually going in and creating a column or something like that.
Right, we're writing some crazy formula.
Yeah, and trying to remember oh wait, is it
365 days?
Is it a leap year or whatever?
366.
This just takes all the headache out of it.
It does all the work for you, yeah.
So let's actually take a look at the syntax of the function.
Okay.
So it's I'm just going to read it out here.
Read for it.
It's Date.AddMonths. Open parenthesis, date time, as any common number of TN months as number close parenthesis as any.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, I know it sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But actually it's pretty straightforward.
Once you break it down.
Yeah, so let's break it down. So the first part of it, the date time is any.
Yeah.
That's just saying, hey, give me a date.
Right, give me a starting point.
Yeah, starting point could be a date, could be a date time.
Could even be text that looks like a date.
Yeah, as long as Power Query can recognize it.
Exactly.
As a date, it's fine.
It'll work.
So then the second part, the number of months as number.
Right.
That's pretty self-explanatory.
But that's just the number of months you want to add or subtract.
Yeah, so if you want to go into the future, you put in a positive number.
Positive number.
If you want to go back in time, you put in a negative number.
Makes sense.
And then the last part, as any, it just means that it can output the result.
Right.
In a variety of different formats.
Yeah, as a date time, as text, whatever you need it to be.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's a pretty versatile function.
Yeah. And to go back to your point about the whole leap year thing.
Right.
Power Query is smart enough to handle all of that.
Yeah.
If you give it February 28th of a leap year.
Right.
And you say add 1 month, it's going to give you March 28th.
Right.
It's not going to get confused and give you March 30th or something.
Right, or March 29th or something.
Exactly.
It's going to do the right thing.
Yeah. It's a pretty robust function.
So one thing that I was thinking about, though, is what about time zones?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because, if you're working with data that's coming from different time zones,
right,
that could potentially get a little messy.
It can be a little tricky. So it's always a good idea to double check your results.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with time zones.
Especially if you're working with data that's coming from all over the world.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So I think as with any date calculation, it's always a good idea to just kind of use your common sense.
Right. Just make sure that the results make sense.
Yeah. And if you're not sure, just maybe test it out on a small sample of your data before you go and apply it to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And, potentially mess things up. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is a really powerful function.
Oh, absolutely. It's a must-have for anyone working with dates in Power Query.
Yeah, and it's one of those functions that once you learn it and you start using it, you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I know about this sooner?
Right. It can save you so much time and effort.
Right. So let's wrap this up.
Okay.
So the big takeaway here is that the Date.AddMonths function in Power Query is a really handy tool. For working with dates, it can simplify your calculations.
It can help you avoid errors.
And ultimately, it can help you get more insights out of your data.
Absolutely. And, it makes you think about what are some other ways you can use this function.
Right.
You were talking about comparing year-over-year trends.
Right.
But what about predicting future trends?
Oh, yeah.
If you know the seasonal patterns in your data,
right,
you could use this function to project those patterns into the future.
That's a great point. So yeah, there's all sorts of possibilities with this function.
It's just a matter of getting creative.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to go out and experiment with it. See what you can do with it.
And let us know what you discover.
Yeah. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
So that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.